Ladies and gentlemen, are we live? Are we live? First YouTube live stream of the year, ladies and gentlemen. If you are tuning in, can you guys give me like a 1 in the chat or just say Mike's working, everything is looking good. And then we will give it a couple minutes, let some people cycle in. But thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited. Okay, cool. Nerd Gun, Nerd Cave, better yet. We're looking good, sounding good with my my over-the-top lav mic here. How's everybody doing tonight? Where's everybody tuning in from? I know we've done some, pushing of this webinar to people in our kind of email list, but I know a lot of people are tuning in from YouTube. Wow, I got a whole bunch of people here. New Hampshire sounds good. Columbus, Ohio. Good evening from KW Metro Studios, Jersey. YouTube live stream consultants, Los Angeles area. What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in here. I know you guys could probably be watching some of the NFL games or doing literally anything else, but I'm stuck. Wow, man, I can't even keep up with this chat here. All right, guys. Well, I'll like I said, I'm going to give it another just minute or two, let some people cycle in here, but I just want to say thank you guys for all tuning in here. And hopefully what I have in store today is going to be good. In just a moment, we'll go over kind of the agenda about what's going to get covered here, but we're hope the show runs about an hour here. All right, who else? We got Florida. We got Long Island. I'm not even 100% sure where that is, but New Jersey, San Jose, New York City. Yo, Tom here from Charlotte. What's going on, Alan? Cape Coral. Okay, Damien, what's up, man? Good to see you in here. Wish me even more luck here. We'll see how this goes here. But Long Island. All right, love it, love it, love it. Hopefully, you know what? Okay, cool. And another thing, I want to just see, just so I kind of know who's out in the audience, could you guys type just a little bit briefly about if you're thinking about getting into a studio or if you already own a studio and just looking to kind of, break through to the next point? I just kind of want to gauge the experience level of the room here so I can kind of cater the conversation to that. But if you guys are just thinking about maybe doing something like this, let me know. If you are in the process of doing it, but just getting started, let me know. If you've been doing this a year, 2 years, if you make tons of money and you're absolutely killing it, you're just seeing what kind of misinformation I'm going to maybe be putting out to the world, let me know here. Already own, in the business, looking to consolidate offerings. Okay, okay. Glow Connection, own a studio. Looking to turn my garage into a studio space. Okay, okay. Looking for a location in Silicon Valley. Interested in getting into the business. Own a studio, but looking to grow. Nice, good to see. Looking for a location. Okay, so it seems like we got a wide range of people here. So that's going to be good and interesting. As you guys probably could tell from the title that I went with this is the main focus of tonight is going to be sales and getting some numbers up. We have a lot of people in our community that are like you guys, either just getting started or are putting things together. And I'm finding that there's a little too much focus and maybe, some of my own doing on our channel about, getting the right gear and kind of just, getting some of these initial things put in place. But I want to spend a little bit more time today talking about sales and how hopefully I can kind of pass on what I've learned about doing this for a couple of years now. And so that hopefully you guys can walk away with something. But whether you're just beginning, getting used to it, you are an entrepreneur, right? So sales is obviously a key part of that. And so we're going to cover a good chunk of stuff there. So multi-room space already owned, but I'm just getting started. Just setting up, Okay, cool. Podcast, producing a podcast for Front Office Sports Redefined. Okay, cool. Awesome, guys. All right. Let me get my slideshow here. I'm working a handful of tech items here. So give me a little bit of leeway on what we got going on here. Share. No, let's not do that. Let's do slideshow. And let's go to this and that. Hopefully you guys can see me. I can't see you anymore, so hopefully you guys can see what's going on here. But today's agenda is what we're covering right now. I'm going to go over a little bit of my story and kind of how I got into it through the YouTube channel. And if you guys follow me on other things or have just kind of been following, you probably know a good chunk of all this stuff. I'm going to recap for people that maybe are just tuning in for the first time, don't know about me. / it's also kind of my way to let you know that I know what I'm talking about to a certain degree and just show a little bit of proof in the pudding there. Then the green section is going to be the meat and potatoes of this thing, which is going to be getting to 100K a year. And so I want to just kind of disclose that right now, this isn't going to be an absolute like one little detail that will just catapult things, but I'm going to break down what it takes and what you can be doing to actually hit those numbers. And I think for some people that might seem like a lot. Hey man, if I was doing 100K a year, I'd be absolutely killing it. I'd be thrilled. But as you will realize, if you haven't yet, 100K from just a business standpoint, you got a lot of things like overhead, cost of just doing business itself, doing the startup costs, and then paying yourself on top of it. And for a lot of people, it's just going to be you're going to start off doing it just yourself without an employee. And so I think 100K is a good kind of like, I don't want to say a minimum benchmark, but if we're hitting that, we're heading in the right direction. And if we're 3 years into doing things and we have yet to break $30,000 a year, that's not great. So, and then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about the studio business community. Again, a lot of you guys follow me on YouTube, and so this is kind of my way that I put out, videos, kind of documenting what I've done. But in this last year, I started the studio business community, which is, while in a YouTube thing, an off YouTube community where we do lessons like this, actually even more so all the time. I teach things. We have other people within the group that teach certain things. It's a whole community hosted on a website called Circle. It's not like a Facebook group or a Discord thing or anything like that. It's this whole built out platform. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. And then I'm going to sit around for some question and answers. You guys, we got a lot of people tuning in tonight. Thank you once again. And so we will we'll go into some questions and answers. I will try to maybe get to some. I'm sure I'm going to take little water breaks here and there, but in general, we'll probably try to save those mostly to the bitter end here. So let me just make sure that everything is still looking good and I haven't disconnected from YouTube, whatever it means. All right, okay, tap into the community. Alan, I appreciate you. Yes, and anyone that's already in the community, make sure you're hyping us up here, all right? Come on now. Cool, all right, we're gonna keep moving on here. And let's get this slideshow up. Okay, so who is this going to be for, right? Again, I've kind of gauged the room, but I think this is going to be for people that are a little bit already established, already kind of putting themselves together. We're not going to be covering gear. We're not going to be covering finding the right location. It sounds like some people are interested in that, and I can stick around for the questions and answers for that. But this is going to be more so geared towards people that already have a studio put together, or a little bit more of a plan, and they just need some advice on how to kind of move the ball forward and get some sales through the door. And then I'm also just kind of preface here that this isn't for the get rich quickers. This isn't for the I want to make passive income type people. I run a business. Some days it's great, some days it's not. That's just kind of how it is. This is hard work. This isn't some meme coin that you can just pump and make tons of money with. I mean, this is a business. You're going to have to spend effort at it. I know a lot of you guys come from the creative world or a creative background, and so you guys probably aren't new to that. Many of you guys are not first-time entrepreneurs, and this isn't your first rodeo, but I just kind of want to clarify that sort of stuff for if we do have some guys that are just tuning in, they see how to make 100K a year, and they have absolutely no business being here. We want to talk about that. So let me just real quick give you guys my story. A good chunk of you guys, know about this. But when I was younger, when I was even in high school, I started my first studio, and it was a recording studio. It's actually a rap studio. I had that out of my house, my mom's house, better yet. And so I did that for years. And that kind of got me through high school and a little bit of college, where I was just running, basically a rap studio. And so people would come in, pay me, to run the session. I'd basically just be doing the mixing, engineering those sessions. And then from doing that, I had the ask of, hey, you do such a good job on my cool beats and making my songs. Could you make music videos? And I was like, sure, why not? So I went out, bought a camera, and then started doing music videos for people. And it was like a perfect kind of upsell charge. People were asking for it. And then I found that I really enjoyed that. I had a little knack for it. And I also enjoyed that it wasn't always something I had to sit there with the client and do. It was a little bit more creatively liberating. When I was doing the music side of stuff, people would usually just bring in the instrumental or the track they wanted to record to. And then it was like just on me to make sure everything mixed well. But doing videos was a little bit my creative outlet. And it was also a good money generator, because where I was charging $25 to $35 an hour at the time for doing music studio stuff, as you can imagine, hourly rate, that's not not very good. And so by doing videos, I don't know what I was able to translate it to, but I was able to, you know, sell them for 300, 500, maybe $700 or something like that, spend half a day with them doing it and then edit it, and usually had a good time doing it, and then send it to them. And I was able to make more money that way. So from doing music videos, I got into doing commercial projects. And for the last 7, 8 years, I've been running a kind of freelance video production business called Innova Digital. And in this year, honestly, we started to slow down that business because the studio had just kind of started to take wind a little bit more. But until pretty recently, that was my primary business. That was what was the real thing for. I see you guys haven't been able to see me here. I've been using hand gestures and everything. You haven't seen me, but and that was what was putting food on the table. And the podcast studio essentially started out as a side project. You know, it was something that I just wanted to do as an additional revenue thing. I thought there'd be a good opportunity, and it was right in the pandemic. Joe Rogan's podcast was popping off, and I was like, you know, there's probably a good opportunity for a place that could just facilitate podcasts, you know, have the cameras, have the lighting, have it all done for you, similar to a recording studio. All you got to do is come in, do it, and leave. And there was nobody doing it. And so when I was getting into my initial research, I looked all over, and there were a handful of studios, but the majority of them were, I don't want to say like unattainable, but they were usually like not as clear cut. They weren't like you could just go in and book. You know, you had to call, you had to do all this sort of stuff, and they were probably going to charge you $2,000 a podcast or something like that. So I saw a big opportunity in this space, essentially. And as I was building this business here, at least the downstairs business called Chicago Podcast Studio, I started making YouTube videos or documenting it a little bit more. I had, you know, posted my work with the other company on YouTube, but it was, you know, by doing a couple of videos on YouTube that essentially a lot of the reason you guys are all here, and the reason I'm doing this, and the reason that I'm in the studio that we're in now, because we've really taken all of our effort from doing the offsite commercial shoots to transitioning to the studio work here. And I'll probably save some of the heartaches and struggles of, you know, what it's like being a freelance videographer. But for many of you guys can kind of know that, or just being someone in the creative field, you know, quoting projects, editing, all this sort of stuff, and really just trying to be able to illustrate the value you bring to businesses is a whole conversation and could be a thing in its own here. So the next slide here is what we did this last year, which I'm you know, happy about, but I want to use it as a little bit of a testimonial as that I kind of know what I'm talking about here. So I wouldn't do a webinar on how to make 6 figures if I wasn't able to do it myself. And so these numbers are from this year. And you can see down at the bottom right-hand corner that Chicago Podcast Studio solely itself did $223,000, which is pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. My first year, I did nowhere near that. I made a video about those numbers. You can go back on the channel and see what that looked like. And then even last year, we hit our first 6-figure year. And you know, I'm stoked to see that we're up another 100-something% this year. And for those that don't keep up with every single video, which is totally cool, we've actually moved into another studio, which is where I'm at now. It'll be similar to Chicago Podcast Studio, but it's dubbed Creator Space. We're getting into small events and a couple of things more like this, helping out, you know, coaches, course people, but again, specifically with events. There's a channel, there's a video on the channel about that space and things of that nature. But anyway, just wanted to not flex, but just show that I'm not full of shit here. I didn't make $10,000 one month and then try to teach people how to make 10K. You know, this is what we did last year, and I'm thinking that this year we'll be able to do quite a bit more, and the goal really to be like to double it or something like that. So as I said, the most important thing we're talking about today is sales, right? Sales. And I know for a lot of people, and this is where I'm going to start bringing in my my whiteboard here. I'm going to scroll up in a minute here, but let's bring this over. All right. Learning how to sell, which is such an important, where's my stylus? Learning how to sell, which I've learned from hosting this group and dealing with maybe some more first-time entrepreneurs, that just the education around sales is not there. And I think for a lot of people, they come into the sales game and they see things like, I don't like sales. or I don't want to be pushy. And obviously in sales, you're going to get those sort of connotations. It's not like it's the most fun thing in the world. Some people breathe it, some people don't. But the hard truth is if you want to get into entrepreneurship and be your own boss, you are every department, and sales is absolutely it. If you don't like doing sales and you want to be an entrepreneur, it's possible. It's just unlikely. It's just tough, especially in the beginning. You're going to need to do some sales. You can hand that off at a future date should you grow to a certain point. But if you aren't able to kind of just dial in a little bit of sales flow, it's a little sales process for yourself, it's going to be a struggle for you. So the most important thing that I want to kind of focus on today is learning how to sell. And one of the biggest things that I see when it comes to creative people or studio owners is build it and they will come, right? And I think I can do this sort of, well, we don't need to full screen it yet, but build it and they will come, right? So I see a lot of people in our own group, and I've seen it outside, where they will put together this super cool studio. It'll look great, it'll sound great. They'll, do a couple of cool social media videos, and then they're like, they got their thing set up, and then they're just waiting. And they look around this room of people rushing by. I imagine it kind of like a lemonade stand, like they're just watching the cars go by and stuff like that. Well, I got really good lemonade. But it's like, who cares, essentially, right? And so some people get so set on building it, and then people will just flow through the door, and it just doesn't end up working like that. So with that being said, the most important thing is learn what you actually sell, right? And so I think for a lot of people in this sort of work here, let me see if I can do this now. Bada bing, bada boom. Learn what you actually sell, right? So let's say you run a podcast studio. Podcasts. You don't actually sell podcasts, right? What do you really sell? Let's say videos, right? Videos. Podcast videos, whatever. Two things there, right? That would make sense. That would be just right off the cuff. I sell podcast videos. I run a podcast studio. That's what I sell. But I don't want people thinking like that. What I want people to start to think is that you're selling. What are these things really trying to do, right? They're really exposure. Let's see if I can. My handwriting is awful. So now exposure. What are you selling with this? Advertising. You're selling presence. Is it with a C or an S? Who knows? Presence, maybe. And so just that in itself, I know it seems kind of like minimal, but I think a lot of people, it's like, I run a podcast studio, I'm selling podcasts. And let me tell you, first and foremost, people don't really care to have a podcast. And we'll go in a second about the types of people, but the majority of clients for us and for a lot of other podcast studios are businesses or small businesses. And literally none of them want to be a famous podcaster, or at least they don't realize that they are shooting in the wrong direction if that's what they're going for, right? Businesses are going to want sales. They want exposure. They want advertising. They want presence. They want to make it look like they know what they're talking about on LinkedIn. And so framing what you're doing in that light to speak to those people is going to be the most important thing. So finding the best audience. Again, I said that we'll talk a little bit about the difference between the real, we can leave this. Retail investor, or not investor, but retail podcaster. And we'll talk about content creators too, podcaster, content creator, whatever, versus business, right? Now, there are people in the group that focus, and in the industry that focus on the retail podcaster. And the struggle with the retail podcaster is what I just said, that podcasting is a tough market, right? We've all seen the memes. We've all kind of known that podcast market is oversaturated, just like any sort of thing that shows great promise and potential, like music, it's like, it's tough. It's not easy to make it in podcasting, right? And I think you see people like Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy or these big athletes or movie stars come into podcasting and immediately start doing crazy numbers. They're just popping off. It looks like they're doing super great. And the reason is because they already have a pre-existing audience. But the majority of retail people don't have an existing audience. The majority of people that we see, hopefully not too many of them watch our live streams here, but the majority of people that we see that are at the retail level come in, and they usually have no idea what they want to talk about. It's usually just like, hey, we're just going to shoot the shit for an hour and a half and see what happens. They do it 2 to 3 times. Our churn rate for retail people is significantly higher than it is for businesses. And then when they don't get a million plays, they're like, this is too hard. Like, maybe it's the studio, it can't be me. And even if they are entertaining, even if they're good, it's just like they're not getting enough exposure, right? You're just kind of like putting it out into the world, and nothing ends up really happening with it. And so what we've focused on, and what I think a lot of other people do, and what I would really encourage people to do, is really focus on businesses, right? Now, I said it on another stream that was on our page, but businesses view it a different way. And if they don't, it's your job to kind of educate them on how to look at this, right? So a podcast for a business is, like I said up here, it's exposure, it's LinkedIn, it's looking like you know what you're talking about. We'll just say looking cool, right? It's having media ready. It's being top of mind. A lot of them, half of the businesses we work with don't even post the full thing, or they just put it on a YouTube video, whatever. They want the social side of it, so they want the clips, right? And for people like in the realtor market and stuff like that, they just want to be in everybody's feed. Springtime's rolling up. This is the biggest time for realtors right now. We have a whole bunch of them that come through the studio. And again, so many of them podcast with us. They do not have a show. There's no show name. It's no like, hi, welcome to this. They're just like, all right, yeah, hit start. And are we live? Okay, cool. Or, are we recording? Sweet. All right, and they just have a list of bullet points that they're going to talk about and tee things off to each other. They'll have 3 or 4 of them on the thing, and so they're in it for this. It's looking cool. It's authority. No, it's not spelled that way though, but it's authority. You guys understand. And so, again, for people that right off the cusp, I sell podcasts, you don't. This is what you want to be selling, right? These are the kind of conversations that you need to be having. And again, going back to the origin of what we're talking about today, sales, right? You actually got to start doing this sort of stuff. So have conversations, learn what you're actually giving them, because it's not a podcast, right? So once you've kind of done that sort of stuff, spend a little bit of time actually just learning how to talk to people. Again, I'm not going to go to it in on this thing, but people will call your business, your studio, and they will ask, how do I do this? How does this process work? All this sort of stuff. And it is your job to teach them this. Some of them will come in and they'll know it. Other people just don't. Again, they think that they want a podcast and they're like already thinking about sponsorships and how many plays they'll get and what the YouTube ad revenue is going to be. And for someone that's a YouTuber, take it from me, it's like none. It's basically zero, unless you do tons and tons of plays, which most businesses won't, right? So again, framing this conversation when businesses do reach out to you, or better yet, when you reach out to businesses, as to what that sort of package looks like. You're not trying to do a podcast. You're trying to have social clips. You're trying to look cool, look like you know what you're talking about, have authority. And then another thing that I usually teach people is that it's really about networking. And so this is a very underutilized thing when it comes to business. And as you guys will know, or can infer, networking and the partnerships of businesses are really important, right? Now, I don't think that we technically have too many within our business, but for plenty of businesses, let's go back to my use case of realtors, right? Loan officers are the biggest, close next thing to them. Every realtor has a good relationship with some sort of loan officer. It's usually, they'll have 2 or 3, but that's kind of part of their process, right? I've sold you this home. Oh, but of course you can't buy it in cash because not many people can do that sort of stuff. So you need financing. I have this partner, he's a loan officer. And so why would you not want to invite loan officers onto your podcast? Why would you not want to use this as a tool to maybe, hey, instead of getting coffee with the hotshot loan officer, you say, hey, come on my podcast. I'll give you a bunch of social media clips. I'll make you look like you know what you're talking about, give you some LinkedIn posts. All you got to do is come on my podcast, done, right? That is a huge part of it. The other thing is networking with people that are outside of your circle. And so if you are a small business, And I see it plenty of the times with studios that just start up. They'll start a podcast about interviewing other small business owners, which is again, a whole other topic, but I highly encourage you to do stuff like that. It's such a great way to bring in other people to your sphere that you wouldn't normally be able to attract. And I've told this story multiple times, but I like to tell it. We had some kid at our studio that was like, he's got to be 19, reached out to the Chicago Bears media team and was like, hey, I have a podcast. Like, would any Bears player be interested in talking to me? And to his surprise, he actually got someone to respond. And he had an active roster Bears player, not a current year, nor like a quarterback or somebody like that, but somebody was on his podcast. We facilitated here. And I remember just being like, how did this kid get this NFL player to hop on his podcast? And it's because of all these other things. It's the exposure, not that you need to look like you know what you're talking about as an NFL player, but it's the exposure of it. It's the clips. It's the experience of it. It's a good thing. And so frame the podcast and your services in this light, and it's going to go well for you, right? Let's talk about crafting an offer. I'm going to take 2 seconds to read some chat and take a little sip. If I'm bombing, let me guys know. I'm looking at Damien. Give me a thumbs up here. All right, let's see. Congratulations, Tom, on the studio. Hey, Victoria, it's good to see you. How you doing? Worked at Google full-time and now freelance for them, technical director. Okay, there's some other conversations happening here. Blah, blah, blah. Dropping some gems. Thank you. Businesses are key, Alan. Yes, tell them. Doing awesome. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, David. Great info so far. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Especially in real estate. Love it. Okay, wonderful. Then I'm going to keep the show going here, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Businesses are good to keep our lights on at Tulsa Podcast Studio. Yeah, exactly. No, businesses... we should be doing more of it. Our split's probably like 70% business and 30% retail people. And I don't want to like totally poo-poo on retail people because there are a couple of them that do well and again, still view it the way that I view it. But usually for those people, we always are just like, you should be trying to push something else, right? So again, there's plenty of solo realtors where it's just like, you're technically a business. I'd maybe consider you a retail level person, but it should be to try to sell houses, right? If you want to start a podcast with your boys or something like that, you should still try to do it in a way that it is beneficial to some sort of thing that you can hopefully make money in, right? Or if it's just, again, making yourself look better. Maybe it's for applying for jobs. You can be like, hey, look, I've made this podcast or something like that. Don't try to make money directly from the podcast. It's just not going to work. All right, so craft an offer. And now before we even get into this, I think one of the things that I kind of want to just touch on is going back to this, where it's like, if you just say, hey, we can book the studio hourly, or you have packages. That's great, but what it doesn't really do is it doesn't feel very like custom. It doesn't feel very like personalized, right? And obviously you can't do a special arrangement for everyone. I guess, honestly, you probably could. But I think putting together some sort of actual offer makes more sense than, again, just kind of building it and they will come. Like, just doing all of your sessions hourly is not going to be a great thing. And so as you start to get some of these conversations going with business owners, all the ones that we end up talking to, it's like I give them our kind of regular spiel. This is how this goes. You can come in like this, or else we can do a package deal that looks like this. About, 60, 70% of them always have some sort of like, well, can we do this? Can I do this? Well, I want this, but not that. And so it doesn't take that much effort to be like, we can come up with something a little different. And so crafting an offer that is specific to people is huge, right? If you are going, how many things are personalized to our stuff these days? Let's just go to like Chipotle, right? I'm a big Chipotle guy. I bet a lot of people in here are Chipotle people. I think what makes Chipotle kind of interesting in that sort of genre is that it's specific to you. You can go in and you can get your order however you want it. You don't have to like do the weirdness of like, can I get this number, but minus this, and plus this? It's like they will make it how you would like to make it. That makes you feel good. It makes them feel good. And it gets them everything that they're wanting. And let's say you do have a package. Let's say you do this, this podcast package and you have set terms to it, or you got to, you know, do this many or that many, and you kind of like try to restrict it artificially. What is the problem with just being like listening to what they say and say, hey, you know, let me hear what you got going on. What are you trying to pull out of this? What is the goal that you would like to get out of this? And then crafting something specific to them. And so I think that is underplayed, and something that myself with our team, we're trying to implement a little bit more, because again, I think that it's just going to perform better overall than just doing something completely basic here. Give me 1 second to check some of these other notes here. So I'm trying to think about the actual split. A lot of the studio business that we have is on the, not the hourly front, but we just do a lot of what we consider one-off sessions. There are a handful of people that are on package deals, but what we do have for people that I think is a sidebar in the long run here, but it's something I want to bring up. And again, there's only so much I can talk about on stuff like this, and I always end up having different ideas for other things here. But for a lot of people that are doing podcast-related stuff, I think one of the biggest takeaways this year about things that are going to go well are switching away from just, hey, I'll just do a podcast. Again, because they're not really interested in doing a podcast. They just want clips. They want social content. Is going away from podcasting and getting into what we just call general studio content. And so I think this year, or maybe a year or something ago, we introduced a different SKU on our website that was essentially just 2 hours of time. We would film it on different cameras, and it was kind of under the cloak of like, you can do whatever. It's just open. You're not going to do a podcast. If you wanted to film a YouTube video, if you wanted to film a handful of social media shorts, it was checking a box that we weren't really doing before, which was like stupid. And again, I think a lot of people have come around to this, but I still see that plenty of podcast studios, it's like, here's a 90-minute podcast. That's all you can do. Or, you know, more, an hour or something like that. But it's only podcasting. And it's like, when you think about it, you've done most of the legwork about having a space that looks professional, sounds professional, has an operator there, has all the equipment, everything's ready to go. So it's like, why would you not, again, if somebody wants to do something else, let them do it. And so I think once we got a couple of inquiries, it was like, yeah, sure, why not? Why don't we just do a separate thing? Imagine for something like this, right? Like if we had a different person come in and say, hey, I want to do a live webinar. To do a webinar of, let's just say, this quality at your house would be difficult. You know, that's an expensive camera. We got a bunch of lights. We have a smart board. We got a lot of stuff going on here. And it's like, why would you not want to offer up your studio for using all different types of purposes? And so filming general studio content was huge for us. And I think it'd be huge for you guys too. And for a lot of people, again, if they're not interested in starting a podcast with this sort of stuff, they can do reels. They can do YouTube videos. They can do courses. What else? Webinars. And we actually charge more for this, too, is the other thing. It requires a little bit extra effort. We usually end up kind of coaching people as they're talking a little bit more. But we actually make more off this sort of stuff than doing just the podcast. So again, I know a little bit of a sidebar, but the general studio content is something that we're going to be pushing even more, and just not, again, pushing people into this little box of like, I have podcast studio, you get podcast. Be a little bit more open-ended. At the end of the day, we're all in the content studio game. We have all this stuff here. We can film whatever you want. If somebody wants to film 60 different versions of a birthday surprise card for somebody else, I'm down to do it. I'm down to do it. If you don't want to start a podcast, that's fine with me. You want to do something else, that's totally cool. And in fact, one of our biggest clients is just this guy. He podcasts a little bit, but all he does is, again, comes out for social clips. He'll use it sparingly. Our biggest single person client, we have one big podcast client that does a whole bunch of sessions with us. Shouts out to Podby and Colin. But our next biggest client does stuff like this. He comes in maybe about once a week. He works consulting in med spas. If you guys follow our page, you guys have probably seen him. He just comes out and does sort of stuff like this. And within that 2-hour period that we have a kind of just a minimum thing, he'll do a 30-minute pod. We'll do 30 minutes of Reacts content. In Reacts content, if that sounds like a new trend for you guys, it is just like the bare bones, easiest content in the world. You guys have probably seen it. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but what it is it requires just about no effort. It's very simple stuff. And again, for a lot of people that just care about having more content on their feed, he is in the consulting space, so he wants to be, every time you open up your phone, you want to see this guy. Reacts content is super easy. I'll do 30 minutes of educational stuff. Content. Where he talks about this sort of, device, how he uses this sort of thing. He'll, talk about some article or some, misinformation in the industry at the time. And then whatever is left, we just do miss stuff. Sometimes we'll do skits. Sometimes we'll take the camera out in the hallway and we'll film some kind of, funny kind of off the cuff things. But all of this is more or less direct to camera content, and it's just for short form stuff. He's not interested, for the most part, in doing any sort of long form stuff. And so again, if you just are focused only on podcasting, you're missing out on stuff like this. And again, this is our biggest single client right now. All right, taking another little break here as we get into kind of the next chapter of stuff here. And so let me, where'd my water go? Check and see. How's everybody doing? Are we still live? We still shaking? Are the Eagles still up? Colton is at home watching the game. And yes, they are. I'm not an Eagles fan necessarily. I am just for him, but yeah. But hopefully everybody's doing all right here. I'm going to just be back to it in just 2 seconds. Is that number right? 45 people watching? That's awesome, guys. I shouldn't have seen it. Too much pressure. Too much pressure. Still live. Yep, 22-1. Cool, still here. Thanks, Jazzy. Cindy Blair, yeah, we are doing a live podcast, and I appreciate you guys tuning in for this one. We're going to try to do more of these for just the YouTube channel, just for all you guys more often. And I think there'll probably be ones that we'll just do kind of public facing, but not on YouTube as well. But again, if you guys like what you're seeing here, we do even more of this within the studio business community. We'll get talked about that a little bit more as we go on here. But cool. Yo, it's Tay. I'm still all ears. Good to see you, Tay. Okay, so recapping briefly, learn to sell. You're here watching this sort of stuff. You're doing the right thing. Aside from what I'm teaching you here, you just got to start upping your content game on consuming stuff about sales. I know it's kind of cringe. It's not the most fun stuff, but if you listen to podcasts, which plenty of people that run podcast studios, that's kind of the last thing you want to do, but you're out walking the dog or driving the car or something like that, put on a podcast instead of listening about some bullshit true crime, something like that. Listen to somebody like Alex Hermosi or some other sales guys, or, it doesn't need to be the inhale gratitude and exhale this sort of stuff, but some just like real direct to the point business content would be good. Sales related stuff is even better of a thing. So learn what you actually sell. Again, you're not selling podcasts, you're not selling videos, you're selling things like exposure, advertising, presence, networking opportunities for those business owners. Who are we actually selling to? We can sell to retail podcasters. That's cool. They usually just don't have as much money. They're a little bit more of a pain in the butt, and it just doesn't go as well, frankly. So I would focus your time on businesses. And again, businesses are looking for all these other things, not being famous podcasters, right? Create an offer, or at least leave flexibility in your offer to accommodate people. Again, everyone's going to kind of want their own Chipotle order the way that they want, right? If they want this and a little bit of that, let them do it. At the end of the day, it's like we really just have spaces that make making video content easy and hopefully fairly affordable, especially in comparison to having people come on site and do stuff like I used to do. This sort of stuff just makes a whole bunch of sense. So craft an offer, have them, but if somebody's willing to tell you exactly what they're looking for, write it down, sell them on that. And then the sidebar of general studio content, basically this, a lot of opportunity here this year, guys. A lot of opportunity here. People, again, slightly less interested in doing podcasts. They want social media content, want this sort of stuff. And for the right people, like realtors that need that content consistently, anyone that's in the coaching business, anyone that is in the agency space and is really trying to hit the pavement this year with marketing stuff, these are the kind of things that you want to be selling them on. Not starting a podcast, it's start a podcast with this stuff, but instead of doing the whole session as a podcast, why don't we do some of this content? Why don't we do some of this content? Why don't we do some of that content? Give them a better mix of things to talk about. So the rest of the time here, aside from the Q&A and a little bit about the group, I want to spend kind of on this topic, which is reap what you sow. And I think it's a Bible verse, but it's just a common thing. For those that don't know, reap what you sow essentially just translates to you'll kind of get out what you put in. And so for plenty of people, again, going back to the beginning of this, where I was like, they just build the space and they think that people will just come, be super thrilled. People are going to be banging down the door, and it's just not going to happen. So reap what you sow. We need to focus on sowing, which is essentially putting the plants in the ground, right? And so that's outbound stuff. And now most people will kind of know what this is, but a lot of people, and I'll even throw myself in here that hasn't done as much of this as I probably should be, they don't do it. Plain and simple. A lot of people just have their website and they're like, cool. And I post once a week on social media. Everybody's, where are all you guys? Where are you? Outbound, right? And so this, for anyone that doesn't realize, is stuff going out, right? This is your cold calls. Everybody just shriveled up a little bit. I don't like doing cold calls. Nobody likes doing cold calls. I don't even know if I'd necessarily agree that this is the most impactful route these days. But if you are struggling to make money and you're broke, why aren't you, and you got nothing but time because you don't have any sessions booked, why aren't you cold calling people? Cold DMs. Instagram makes this super easy. At least with a cold call, they'd have to go to a website and stuff like that. Cold DMs, hey, if you message someone from a podcast studio page and just say hey, I love your business. I'd love to maybe do a free session with you or come out, do a studio tour. I think a podcast could be really good for you guys, or filming some other content and that sort of stuff. So cold calls, cold DMs, LinkedIn stuff. Let's just say content. And the reason I put LinkedIn more so than Instagram and stuff like that is while there are businesses on LinkedIn, on Instagram, the majority of your decision makers and business clients are going to prioritize being on LinkedIn. And I think if you are good on LinkedIn, they will also want to be prominent on LinkedIn. And so catering to those sorts of people makes sense. LinkedIn is just the business to business platform, right? People are there not to share memes and cat videos. They're there to make money. And so it's naturally the place that I think that you guys should be seeking to make clients, right? And so I can't speak for everyone, but I've seen people in our group and plenty of other people that, again, have a studio and don't even have a LinkedIn, which is crazy. Or they have a LinkedIn that's not active, or they don't have a profile picture, or they don't have at least 500 connections, which basically is the bare minimum thing to just make you look like you know what you're talking about. Now, I don't know how many I have, but I hit 500 a week into me trying to hit 500, because all you got to do is just hit connect with a bunch of people. Most people do it and understand that it's this isn't me wanting to go out on a date with you. I'm not going to always send you a DM. It's just about building your network, getting more people into the flow so they can potentially see your posts in general. But I will put myself out there first that I don't spend nearly enough time doing this sort of outbound stuff, actually really trying to find business. And for people that aren't hitting the numbers that we aren't and are bummed about it, it's just why aren't you doing this? I get it's not fun. Owning the business isn't. There are ways to kind of just up the front end funnel numbers of, I have this cool thing. How many people know about it? Not enough. Who's going to be my biggest cheerleader? Me. And it's doing this sort of stuff, spending at least an hour a day. Again, it's a bare minimum. If you're broke and not doing anything and you have just a vacant studio and you're wondering why, I don't know what you're doing at that other time, but it's most likely not as beneficial as spending time on this sort of stuff. And again, I know you see cold calls, cold DMs, and it just makes you shrivel. If this isn't your cup of tea, you can do things like producing content, educational stuff. A lot of you guys that watch the YouTube channel, as you guys could probably put together. It's like made educational content for you guys and then built all this, and this is why we're here, blah, blah, blah. Educational content, teaching people about these things that I just talked about. Make a LinkedIn video and say, hey, I know you're not interested in actually doing a podcast, but what you should be doing is this. You can get clips. You can do it for this. It's a great networking thing, blah, blah, blah. Teach people that way, and you can have a little bit more coming in towards you. But outbound stuff, learn it. It's really, really important. And I actually have a graphic here. I jacked it from somebody else. But let's pull it up here because I think it's worth showing. Again, this might feel basic to some people. And I'm not going to be able to draw, unfortunately, but it starts with prospecting, lead generation. That's those initial conversations, reaching out to people, touching base with them. Multi-channel outreach. Again, LinkedIn, if they have an Instagram, message them there. If they have their personal cell phone on there, call them. Who cares? You know, it's people, I wouldn't worry about it, man. It's just a dog-eat-dog world. Call them up, right? Follow-ups and engagement. Let me go back to full screen on this one. The amount of times, myself included, I have let good leads fall through. It happens all the time. And I think as, again, people that are not so seasoned in entrepreneurship or sales and stuff like that, take, a missed email or somebody, you send one message, they don't respond, and you're like, they hate me. They don't like me. The offer sucked, all this sort of stuff. And 9 times out of 10, especially on a first cold email, they just deleted it. Just plain and simple, looked at it, saw it was somebody they didn't know and saw that it was probably a sales email, deleted it. And so we could spend time talking about how to just make your email not as deletable, but in general, people just don't do that. And so for anyone that's gotten DMs on LinkedIn, they'll go back to this sort of stuff and see that whoever it is will follow up with them 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And it gets annoying, but listen, it's just what it is. It's a numbers game. You got to be doing this sort of stuff. So follow up with people, especially those that connected with you and said like, oh, I either want to come out for a tour or, yeah, I'd be interested in this. I just got to think about it. I got to talk to my wife, or I got to talk to Steve in marketing, see if we can get this approved. Follow up with them constantly and often. And again, I think that it's very common. People will assume that it is nagging. It is, I'm being I'm being too much. And I've heard it from so many more people that when I do follow up, they're like, thank you for following up, because, my life's been crazy. And like, I really want to do this. I just haven't made the time. And so by you following up, it's actually like really actually helping me make this decision here. So do it. Don't let yourself get too butthurt about it. Structured process to close deals. Again, going back to that, have some sort of have some sort of scheme, have some sort of plan, have some sort of routine about how you do these sorts of things. The biggest problem with me in my freelance video career was like, people would call you up and say, hey, I want to make a video. You'd say like, cool, what do you want to do? And they wouldn't really tell you too much. And then they'd say, how much money is it? And it was just tough. And so take the bull by the horns, actually guide them into the conversation, find out a little bit what they want to do, and then craft what you offer to fit within that thing. A lot of times if you're just like, yeah, we could make a podcast for you, great. They're going to fall through it, right? If you say, this podcast is going to help you guys make more sales and make this year the best year possible for you guys, that sounds a lot more entertaining than like, we could start a podcast for you guys and it might be something of value. So learn how to just close deals, learn how to just the whole process works, right? And then nature and support clients, as you guys would imagine, that's just making sure that once you've sold them on something, that you deliver on it, they have a good experience, and hopefully tell their friends, because as we all know, referrals are going to go a lot further than not referrals. Then people just finding you organically. A lot of our best clients came from people that, hey, this person records with you, I'd like to be there. And it happens literally all the time where people will come in and be like, I saw that this person records here. And I was like, I just need to record here for that reason. So important thing there. And take another breath here. And then we're going to go into, we have how much time do we have? Not a whole lot of time. So I'm going to save it for another one here. But inbound is its whole other thing. A lot of people aren't even running ads, which is like whatever, I guess. But if you are making some money and just living off of it, I get it. But at the same point too, you should be spending money on some marketing. We plan to up our marketing dollars this year. I highly encourage you guys do too. I know for a lot of people, Facebook ads or Meta ads or anything like that is like scary. It's a little uncharted territory. You maybe don't know how to do it, and you obviously fear spending money and not getting it back. And that's a very understandable but juvenile thought. Your money doesn't go completely nowhere, and I think if it's spent in a strategic way, and you have your stuff, like I just talked about, put together, it is the biggest and most effective way to get in front of more people, just plain and simple. And I think, Meta ads with Instagram and Facebook are the most bang for your buck. It depends on your industry, but I would advise that over like Google AdWords or something like that. TikTok's probably gonna get deleted here soon anyway. But spend a little bit of money on ads. At very minimum, just retargeting. Every people that visit your website, you want to show them that, hey, I knew that you visited my website. Why didn't you book? Why didn't you do anything? But again, that'll be another live stream for another day on how to market. But so many people, myself included, making enough and not putting enough back into that. It is not rush. It's not roulette. It's not gambling. It's not money down the drain. If it is spent in a smart way, you will be able to track the ROI on it. And it's obviously important that you do. All right, let me get back to sharing it here. All right, and so deja vu here. It looks very similar to how I look here, right? But I wanted to, as we kind of wrap this up, talk a little bit about the group, right? And so a lot of you guys watch the YouTube channel. A lot of you guys have been, some of you guys have been in the group, and I appreciate those that are tuning in that are in the group. This is where I'm going to ask you guys to shine a little bit more. But one thing that's really kind of unique about us here is that we are really the only kind of podcast content studio resource group / community that I've been able to find. Now, I know there's obviously other YouTubers that make content about, gear and filming things, but I think where I've kind of found my niche is talking about the business side of stuff and growing that sort of stuff. And while we do more of the YouTube videos towards, equipment and this, that, and the other thing, or just like high level stuff, the studio business is kind of my outlet to talk about business related stuff a little bit more. And so we've been doing that. We have members literally from all over the world. We have obviously a good chunk in the US, but as you'll see in a minute here, we do have people from all over the world, which is super cool, just because it's been fun to see our reach, as well as like how some of these ideas that I won't say that I've pioneered or started, but like how everyone's kind of operating in a similar space, but countries apart, is really fun. And it's been interesting to see how successful people in other countries are. I've had people message me from Africa being like, I'm thinking, about starting a studio in Africa. We have members, again, from all over the place, and that's just been a fun experience in that. Within the studio business community itself, we host streams like this all the time. I do twice a month office hours where you can just get one-on-one time with me and whoever else joins the call. And so we've been doing those for a while now. We usually have, a good chunk of people that show up, and it's just a great way to kind of just converse, talk with people, see what's been going on. And it's also, again, kind of one-on-one time to get not only my advice and input on stuff, but everybody else's. Just the last couple of days we had one, and it was a lot of like tech issue related stuff, and other members in the community were able to help out this specific person, maybe even more so than I was, because I just wasn't as familiar with their camera setup. And it's been just a cool thing like that. Unlike a course or where it's just kind of like Tom's the end all be all, it's been fun to kind of just harness a community of other like-minded people and have people kind of help each other out and things of that nature. So in addition to those streams, we do lessons like this. I'm trying to do one of these a month, and then we're going to try to have one lesson taught aside from myself every month. This month we have one from Aaron, which you guys will see in a little bit here. He's going to be talking about sales too, because I think that's a hot topic for us. But that pretty much gets us up to about a weekly stream. And so there's that. There's daily posts. I post fairly often, maybe every other day. And then there's people within the community that post a good chunk. We also host an exclusive series of one-on-one interviews with other studio owners. If you follow just the YouTube channel, you've seen compilation videos of these in the past, but usually they're just very condensed, short down versions, and usually like 3 or 4 of them merged into one. But there are, I think, probably like a dozen, and then a couple more in the works here. hour-long plus interviews with other studio owners talking about what's worked for them and how they're doing. And so that's a huge value to people and a good opportunity for people to kind of learn from others in that sense. We have equipment lists. A lot of people want to know about equipment, what we use, what other people use, what's been good. So things like that, sales blueprints, similar to stuff like this. We've had other, streams about lighting specific stuff. Again, just a bunch of fun content. And then what I'm working on to start off the spring here, the winter/spring, is we're putting together a course that'll be included with the subscription to the group. And as of now, it's probably looking like it's going to be about 15 hours worth of stuff, about 5, let's say, on the kind of pre-production process of finding the right location, all the front end business stuff, getting started, and then we're going to have a handful of hours worth of content on just kind of getting from about 0 to let's say $100,000 a year, 6 figures, just getting the ball rolling, and then we'll have some more advanced stuff about how to absolutely kill it in the coming time. And so I want to just talk about a couple of the members in particular. What makes them kind of unique, right? So this is Keyshawn. We've done an interview with him, and Keyshawn was one of my first students that I had before the studio business community was a thing. He reached out to me from watching the YouTube videos and was like, "Hey, I have he lived in upstairs, it was a duplex, I guess. He lived upstairs, had a downstairs that he was renting out on Airbnb, and was like, I think I could make more money with this. I want to start a different business. And can you help me?" And so we did a consulting arrangement. He paid me for, a series of phone calls. And throughout, I think a couple of months, we put his studio together, and I gave him pretty much all the sauce, everything I knew about doing well in this sort of business. And he has just done really well. And so this is a screenshot of him from our interview that's live on the group right now. But Keyshawn is now doing over $100,000 a year. He's planning to move into a different space. And the studio has way more Google reviews than our own studio has. So he's definitely doing something right. And the reason I put him in here is because he didn't come into this from a creative background where he was, freelance videographer doing this or a marketing person. He was a CPA. And he decided to do this. Again, he thought he could make more money than he was getting with Airbnb. And he was absolutely right. And he's actually walking away from being a CPA and is going full-time on content studio creator, like plenty of us have. So that's Keyshawn. He's in the group. Good guy, again, making over $100,000 a year. This is Trevon. Trevon has been on the show before. If you guys follow the YouTube, you guys have seen him before. Trevon came into it. He did have a video company before that he still runs, but he's very quickly transitioning to running the podcast studio full-time, which is super cool for him. His spot's actually really sweet. He's out in Las Vegas, which is a really highly competitive market, but he's been able to do really well, really early, I'd say. Not as early as the next guy, but he's spent a little extra time dialing things in, and he's a guy that knows his sales side of stuff. So he's, I think, officially been launched for just a handful of months, but has told me that, he's going to be hitting this number and probably more in the next year, which is just super cool. And I've known him for years now. I've helped film some of his projects, and he's we had conversations years before I even got into doing this sort of stuff about this very thing. And so it's super cool just to see us both following where we thought the trends would go within the industry. So Trevon here. And this is Aaron Martinez. Aaron Martinez hit basically $17,000 in monthly recurring revenue within 60 days of having his podcast or his studio opened. And so you see a photo of him here. This is the studio with absolutely nothing in it. He's decked it out a little bit more. But the reason I put him in here is, one, $17,000 in 60 days is really great numbers, as if you can't put that together. And he did so many things from a pre-sale perspective. He was doing big numbers before he even opened the doors, essentially. And yes, again, this isn't his first rodeo. He knows about sales. This was the first content studio, but he just knew how to sell things, and he was able to get people to, again, invest money into him before it was all put together. So he's doing big numbers now, and again, he is going to be hosting a a lesson similar to this later in the month within the studio business community. That sort of stuff is all included in for the subscription. This guy, big dog, Vuk. Vuk has a podcast studio out in Dubai called Podster, and he does big numbers. They have some of the coolest looking sets, so I highly encourage you guys to go look these guys up. As you can tell, 303 Google reviews. Dubai's a massive place, bunch of money there, but clearly doing something right. And he has more or less told me in messages that he's actually doing more than this, but I didn't want to out his numbers too much. They are killing it. And as you can tell, big space. He's now venturing into app service basically for podcast studios that we'll probably do some content on here in a little bit from a booking perspective, kind of addressing a lot of the booking related problems that go along with some more just traditional booking services like Acuity or Square Appointments and stuff like that. But Vuk is in the group, and it's just like, I guess what I want to kind of illustrate is that we have guys and girls like this at this caliber in the group already. And I'm not going to claim success for any of these numbers. It's not like I can, I don't want to put out there that like they wouldn't have been anywhere without me by any means. These guys were all killers before me, but I just want to illustrate the talent and the kind of like, you're going to be brushing elbows with people like this within the group. So I think that that's worth pointing out. And so I've done a whole big presentation on sales. I would be a fool not to do some of my own. So don't back out just yet. But here's my kind of call to action to you guys. All right. If you found value of what I talked about today and like this sort of thing, and you are serious about getting into this sort of business, I genuinely think that we are the only platform that is really doing content about it to begin with, which makes us the #1 pick. But we really are the only resource for this sort of stuff. And I think that if I was to be starting this now, this would have been like a no-brainer for me. When I started, there was no roadmap, there was no process, no even really good examples, other references to pull from as far as like what was working for people and what wasn't, how to even just frame, an hourly rate, what the studio should look like, how the workflow of the equipment and stuff like that goes. There's so much that goes into it. It seems like a fairly simple business. And I think down to its core, it is in comparison to something that, has inventory, requires tons of employees and this massive startup. It's a fairly simple business, but there are still just a lot of moving parts. And I really wish that I had a group like this when I was getting started. So for all of you guys that just watch the YouTube channel, I obviously appreciate you guys so much. And without you guys, none of this would have been put together. But this is, again, kind of my call to action that we, by doing this, are trying to grow our followers for the off-site community. And so here it is. If Damien's still watching, hopefully he can put the link to the website down below. But this is it. I would like for you guys to join us here. And so we have some members in the chat now. And so if you guys could let people know how much you love it, that would be super helpful to me. But today, in addition to this pitch here, basically, which is $500 for 6 months access, which again, will get you all those streams. We do 4 streams a month. The course is going to be rolled out just as it's completed episode-wise, and it'll be put there. That'll be free content. The interviews, all this sort of stuff that we pack in for this sort of price, I think is like an absolute no-brainer. Naturally, I would say that. But again, if you're about to jump into this business and don't have kind of a playbook like what we offer, I think the amount of pain and suffering is going to be far greater than the cost of what we're charging for this subscription here. And we used to do things monthly. And I think what I found with that was we found that we were getting a lot of people that weren't really serious, didn't want to commit, didn't want to participate the way that we thought the community should. Again, I didn't want to start a course. I didn't want to start something that was just going to be like this. I really wanted it to be a community effort where we could all teach each other and talk about these sorts of things. And so I think that we've built that. But instead of doing it where it's a little monthly tick on your credit card, I wanted this to be a jumping off point for people that's like, you know what, I'm actually about to do this. If you're essentially going to sign a year lease, buy all the equipment, you know, maybe quit your full-time job to do this sort of stuff, to me, I think that this is a no-brainer price. So for $4.99 for the 6 months, or for $7.99 for the year, this is, I think, I think it's a good move. I think it's a good thing. It's Christmas present, you know? And one other thing that I want to talk about, or one other thing I want to illustrate, is that if you sign up for it today, right now, hop on. Hopefully Damien's, I'm going to go over to my YouTube chat. Hopefully he's doing it. Hopefully he hasn't tuned out yet. But if you can go to thestudio.business and sign in there. I'm going to be doing a one-on-one call with anyone who signs up in the next, let's say hour, 2 hours, if you guys need a minute to wrap up. By 12 o'clock tonight, if you guys sign up, I will personally reach out to you and set up a one-on-one hour-long phone call with you to talk about your situation in specific and what we can do to help here. But I'll leave the sales pitch to that, and then I'm gonna open it up for Q&A, guys. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Hopefully it didn't turn off too many of you guys, but if you have stuck around and have something that you'd like to get addressed, let's do that now. I'm gonna scroll back as we let some of these kind of come in, and we'll go from there. But thank you guys for tuning in. Let's see. Phenomenal info, great info so far. Any tips on advertising creatives? Oh, advertising creative. Okay. Yes. I mean, we have some, hopefully I didn't pull my mic out there. We have a couple threads on our community for creatives. Like, I assume you mean like actual ad creatives for this service. Yeah, you can look up mine. A couple other people posted their things. And a little hot tip is if they're advertising with Facebook or Meta, you can actually just go to their Facebook Meta page, and then you go to like transparency or something like that, or the about section, and then transparency. You can see if they're running ads, and you can actually pull up their ad library. So that's a big tip for people that want to see what everyone else is doing. You can actually literally just pull up the ads that companies are running. You guys are doing great. Thanks for all the gems. For those that have not joined, you are missing out. Tell them, Victoria. Tell them. Yeah, I really appreciate all the TSB group guys that we got in here. Hello, everyone. Where are my members at? Yes, super helpful. Can't recommend enough people. Thank you. Appreciate that. TSB member worth it. I had no idea how to charge normal prices. I had no idea how to charge prices normal people can afford if I can incorporate live streams on location for much, much more. My state-of-the-art studio stays unused 99% of the time. That's not good. That's that sort of thing where it's like, this is a whole other thing, but I'm just going to assume if you have state-of-the-art studio, you've probably been doing this a long time. And I learned from doing offsite video work that, like, yeah, initially the coming in to do the in-studio stuff felt like I was taking a pay cut. Like, it didn't feel like it was as profitable, didn't feel like it was as much bang for your buck. But let me kind of tell you now, that's like on a day that we are at full capacity, really bumping, I make more than I used to for a day rate doing offsite stuff. And I get to do it in a place that is, you know, my own. I don't have to lug gear on. I don't have to set things up. And then I think from a client perspective, again, we can help 5 different clients, 6 different clients throughout a day. Whereas like to do an offsite shoot, we're, you know, doing all this sort of stuff. And so to relate it to you and your studio, I know top of the line studio, you probably want to charge top of the line prices, but maybe you can start working with people on a less fancy pants basis, doing stuff like this where they want to just do some sort of stream and be able to pull some additional money that way. Because the last thing we want is a studio that's absolutely generating no money at all. It's great. Catch folks soon. Have a good night. Take care, Alan. Booked every day, and are you booked every day, and is that even possible? Jazzy. Yeah, I want to say every single day. There are certain days. So there's only 2 of us that work full time at this point. And so it is somewhat often. I don't say it's somewhat often, but yeah, I mean, I can pull up my calendar. I can message you if you want to message me on, if you want to message our page on Instagram or something like that. I can screenshot you our calendar. I would say, have bookings at least 6 out of 7 days a week. And sometimes it's not 7 just because I book it off, because between the 2 of us, we just like to have one day on the weekend that we're not doing stuff. So like a day like today, I was supposed to be filming something else unrelated to all this sort of stuff earlier. That got canceled, but I knew I had this, so I had to shut the studio down for this. Colton being a big Eagles fan, I wasn't going to pull him away on a Sunday. So yeah, it absolutely is possible. Last year, we did over 500 sessions. This isn't just 500 podcasts. Some of those sessions were a full day. Some of those were half days, but we did over 500 sessions. So I know that doesn't equal out to a significant amount every single day, but it is fairly common that we have, let's say 2 to 4 different sessions pretty much every single day, and even on the weekend. So yeah, it absolutely is possible. And there are people that do even more volume. Again, Zook out in Dubai does even higher volume. Victoria, I appreciate you hustling in the comments, selling there for me. KW Metro Studios, how has your post-production workflow with general studio content been going? I've been focusing on general more than podcasts, and while it is fruitful, the turnaround time expectations on unique content. Good question, and I didn't talk about it too much here, but for those that watch the channel or followed me know that I'm not the biggest fan of editing, and a lot of our work here is we just hand off the files. And I think it is for those reasons where it's like the more unique asks come up, and then even unlike with a podcast where it's just kind of like set things, you're going to start getting into more of that like, hey, can you tweak this one tiny thing a little bit? And then you get in that back and forth of like editing, or hey, I kind of sucked because I didn't rehearse the night before. I didn't really know what I was talking about. So like, can you jazz it up? Can you make it look, a little bit fancier? And that can definitely become a bottleneck for the guy that does all of those other sessions with us, or that does this sort of stuff. He's big time enough. He's got his own agency that works for him, and they, from an editing perspective, cut all this sort of stuff up. So we just hand off the raws, which again, yeah, we leave money on the table, but I know the agency outsources it to some other country, and they do a whole lot more. They come up with the content that he talks on. They do a lot more stuff with him. He's pretty integrated into their stuff, but we just hand off the raw files for this. And it's fairly common that for people that are doing this sort of stuff, they either have someone that is already an editor for them, and they just need the content done. And I know, it seems like you're giving away half the business there, but it's really not half the business. The editing is like the biggest pain in the ass, and it's usually like the lower margin stuff. It's tough to find a space that a human can go in, professionally record, get it done, and send it off to somebody else. Not too many people have full-time editors in the US. Again, it's like, it's so much cheaper to get it done somewhere else. We, quote and offer editing services for people, but we lose that bid fairly often. And I'm okay with that just because it is, like you said, kind of a pain and tough to stay competitive. So the majority of the time, we just hand off the raw files. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. For some clients, again, they want that full service thing, and you can offer it to them. But I usually kind of like pretty quickly, I'm like, we can do it, but you can probably find somebody else to do it for cheaper. And that's not me to give away work as much as like, hopefully dodge a headache in the long run. And the last thing you want too is to have your production be really good and the editing not check enough boxes for them, and then they don't like you at all, I'd rather just do one thing really, really well, feel confident enough in that. And again, it's usually the higher margin thing as doing the content itself. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Yes, the reshoot requests get painful. Yeah, exactly. I mean, no. And again, coming from the commercial world where I was filming stuff, like the last thing you want once you send a video that costs, a whole bunch of money to put together is like, we're going to need to reshoot this one scene or two. And you're like, oh, no. And so we just don't really have that. And for plenty of things like this, again, while we're trying to put a little bit more effort into it this year, we're probably going to kind of break this into like basic edit, where we'll do basically like the 2 camera cuts. We usually have 2 cameras rolling. We'll do the camera cuts, we'll do captions, and we just clean it up. Maybe some emojis, things like that. But what we don't do are the advanced things. Can't spell. Advanced edits, I mean, those are like those reels that you see that, it's like they talk, and then it's a green screen around them, and then it's all this other crap and B-roll and all this other sort of stuff. That stuff takes tons of time. And again, it either hits and goes great, or it's like, oh, I don't like that, and this stock clip looks too stocky. Now you got to go back and do it. So we've had good success just offering the basic edits, and I think that makes sense. I think we will do this sort of stuff, but we're not going to do it in-house. And then again, it's just we're getting into like everybody's paying the same overseas people to do this sort of stuff. So just, if I were you, just spend more time focusing on doing the actual production and less on the editing, and I think it'll go well for you. Hi, yes. Jazzy, do people automatically book on your website, or do they give you a hard time about the price and want to do Cash App, Apple Pay, etc.? So yes, and again, that's a good point to talk about. Auto booking is huge. So the first year I was in business, I didn't have this feature because it was, I don't know if it was just difficult or I think I was just, again, in the old sales mindset that somebody's going to want to talk to me. They're going to want to come out for a tour. They're going to want to, ask questions. They're going to want to do all this sort of stuff. And I found that once I put this feature on, which just if you want to know, we use Square Appointments. Square does our payment processing, and Square Appointments is their kind of booking tool. And it's decent, again, not phenomenal, but the second I did this, I remember I hit go on it, and literally within 2 hours, somebody had already booked. He was a current client, but he didn't have to call me. I used to have to send an invoice to everybody. It was and there was the bullshit back and forth of what time works for you? How about this? Yes, that works. Never mind. I need it changed. This. And it was just who wants to deal with that sort of stuff? So auto booking is massive. If you're not doing this, and I yelled at somebody in the group the other day because he was asking, that they're struggling with getting some of those kind of one-off sessions, and I was like, "Do you have auto booking on the website?" Pulled it up. No, they don't. It's it was only, you could only book a strategy call with them, and it's what are you doing? So auto booking is huge. The amount of times that people do not call, do not schedule a tour, do not do whatever, none of that, send an email, they just book and show up is massive. Tons and tons of people. Again, it's so fun too to just get that notification oh, a new person booked. The website sold them. What they saw online looked good enough. They didn't, the questions were answered. They felt confident enough to put their credit card in and run the stuff that way. So auto booking, super important. Can't talk highly enough about that. Price concern. We get some of that sort of stuff. Usually if we get an inquiry on the website that's pricing ? I won't even respond, and that's kind of bad business behavior, but we have a pricing section on our website. If you are in the fill in the form asking for pricing and you just haven't navigated to the pricing section at the top of our website, you're just not somebody that I want to work with. Again, bad business tactic, but I ain't got time for it. So we don't do that. If people call and see that pricing thing and say, hey, it's too much, it's cool, go somewhere else. And then they'll book. The amount of times that oh, this seems kind of expensive. Yeah, all right, well, if you just want to do audio, you can probably go to a different studio, or if you want to just do on your own, you can download Riverside and spend a little bit of money and do it that way. Okay, I'll hit you up. Hangs up, and 2 days later, they'll book on our website. So price concern's a thing, but it's not a you thing. I think a lot of people assume that they tie money and sometimes even the cost of something as a reflection. They just get it convoluted with is it a price concern, or is it this person just thinking that they're not going to get enough value out of it, or they're not going to get enough this out of this sort of stuff. And it's really not too much of that in my experience. So no, we don't have people ask for Cash App, any sort of stuff like that. And I discourage that sort of stuff. That sounds like retail level people behavior. It takes a credit card online. You can reschedule it if you need to. It's taken care of. We pay a little bit of money to do that sort of stuff with the payment processing, but gets the job done. And no, we don't really do any cash deals or anything weird like that. And so again, if there's one thing to take away, definitely set up auto booking on your site. Joe Barranco, what's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you in here. Joe, did you have any questions for me, man? I'll get to yours if you need them. But no, as we're wrapping here, I'm already getting a little bit over time here. So any other questions, not concerns, going into sales tactics here. Anyone that has any questions about the presentation tonight, or just want to know anything about their business, their studio business, things that gotten into it. We had a couple people ask about finding the right location, stuff like that. If you guys are still in the chat, just let me know, and I'll get to that here. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. We get a lot of auto-booked tours from our social media posts. We have our clients do drops for the studio. We also have our clients do drops for the studio. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but that sounds good. I don't have a tour book on our website, an automatic tour book on our website, which I probably should. But people can call if they want a tour. And honestly, while tours are still good to do, majority of the time it's like, are the photos not enough? Like, what do you think you're going to see here? I'm happy to talk to you. Like, I understand wanting to like talk through something. And it's like, I can FaceTime you or something like that, but do tours. I know sometimes people get discouraged about, you know, them not doing them, but if somebody actually comes out to your location, they're definitely more serious about doing a podcast than you'd think, or doing whatever with you. And so take that time to really educate them and talk about some of the stuff that we had talked about tonight. Thanks, Tom. Super helpful as always. Anyone on the fence about TSB should jump on it. Best of luck, everyone. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. He's not lying. Hop on it. I'm going to real quick go back to my slide here before I answer the last couple of questions here. So like I said, tonight and tonight only, just kidding. This deal is going to be around for a while here. But if you want to join the Studio Business Group, do so now. Do so today. You can get 6 months in $4.99 or $7.99 for the year. And again, if you are interested in getting into the studio business, chances are you probably don't actually really know what you're doing. You don't know what you don't know, but our group does, and we can help you do it. We host tons of good things, informational, webinars just like this. We have lessons from people other than myself. If you hate me, you'll love everybody else that's in the group. There's tons of just like miscellaneous tech support information, templates for websites, templates for pitch decks, templates for checklists on how to just, deal with people when they come in, checklists for checking the equipment before you start recording. There's a lot of useful stuff in there if you're interested in getting into this business. And then, as I said at in the presentation too, we're working on like a 15-hour course that'll be put out in the spring, summertime, and again, just kind of rolled out as the episodes get finished. But that in itself is going to be massive. And so, everyone who signs up today or by 12 o'clock tonight, you'll get a one-on-one phone call with me. And so I'll reach out to you personally, connect on how to set that up. But hopefully we can get you firing in the right direction with a call like that. So let me hop back, last questions here, and then we'll go, and hopefully everybody else can enjoy the rest of their night here. Okay, 7, how do you handle all the calls? First things they ask is, how much do you charge? It's a valid question. I think if that's everybody's first question, it's usually a sign of like, I don't want to say it's not going to go well, but it's definitely a sign of like they're budget conscious. Businesses don't do it. And again, businesses is who I would say that you should be focused on. The majority of the time, I feel like businesses, when I tell them the price to do an episode and an edited episode, they're like, okay, but are we getting everything? Like, is that with 3 cameras and somebody will be there? It's usually like the opposite. Retail level people, it's an expensive service, right? Like, I'm not going to, we charge $2.99. Oops, we don't charge that. We charge $2.99 for 90 minutes. That's a good chunk of money, for people that are just doing a podcast. And this is just the live cut, right? So it's like, this is a decent amount of money. That's why it's tough to retain retail level people. So businesses, on the other hand, it's like done, no problem at all. And again, if you're really smart, you do this, you do maybe 30-minute episodes, or you do not a podcast at all, and you just do social media clips. People could crank out 10, 15 social media clips in that time, and the per cost on that is just so low. Even this for 90 minutes with somebody that they look up to from a business perspective. Hey, here's this kick-ass loan officer. I'm an up-and-coming realtor, and I really would like to work with them. I'm not gonna, get them to come to coffee, but I'll pay this fee, and I'll get, hopefully 90 minutes with them. They'll see that it's filmed at this really cool podcast studio, that they're gonna get all these social media clips, and they'll come out because of that. So when people call and price is their first thing, it's a little bit of a hurdle, but you're just gonna have to get a little used to that. And I think the more serious people, it's usually not their first concern. Looking forward to the next one, Tom. Bye-bye. It's been super helpful. Yes, thank you, guys. Just as you give them a standard price and then ask for specifics. Tell them that. And I think too, when you can tell someone that's trying to do that, you it puts you in this defensive stance as if you're trying to like, well, but we can make something, we can work something out, you know? And I think we've all been there. Going back to my life as a freelance video guy, you know, when you get to the page of the presentation where it has the number of how much it's going to cost, it's a common sales thing to do it. And they always tell you to just pause and just stop, because you'll see their face and you'll see them go, or wince or something like that. And it's just like, no, be firm about your price. Yeah, it's $2.99 for 90 minutes. And I think that's a steal. It should be more, honestly, you know? And just, I would say, go into it with that sort of thing. We don't discount anything. People call, do you guys ever run sales? No. Nope, this is what it is. And again, it's usually those people that will then just book a week later, and it is what it is. Drops are when they speak about the studio and speak about the experience while I have them in there. That is a good thing, something we've never implemented, but I think that is a useful tool. We don't even do enough like testimonial recording of clients that are consistently with us. It's a foolish thing on us. I'm going to be better about it. But no, I've heard that works really well. And on the tours, I've heard people have said they've had good success with, like, instead of just showing them the stuff, they say like, oh, you know, come in for the tour, sit down for 10 minutes. And like, I'm going to ask you a question or two about your business. And then they'll, you know, bounce that out. There's a guy that literally can airdrop things to people. He records it like an OBS and then is able to like airdrop it to people. But yeah, when they come in for the tour, send them a little video of, you know, give them a little 5-minute thing, ask them a question, send it to them so they can see how they look on camera, and it just makes it feel so much more real. So that's a good tip. Thank you for throwing that in there. Can you critique studio websites as far as call to action, effectiveness, and all that sort of stuff? I'd love to. Yeah, that's good Reacts content for me. I haven't thought about that. We actually just the other day posted in the group kind of like a big thread with everybody's website, and so maybe I'll go through and roast some of you guys, or hopefully, you know, tell you that you're doing things well. A lot of people have been using kind of the same templates, the same design, same look, and it seems to be working pretty well. And as I said, I mean, the most important thing is that your website does the selling for you, right? If you had to take every sales call, every inbound inquiry, that wouldn't be so great. The website really should be the first thing that gets seen and really should do the selling for you. You get an equipment list too? Yes. So don't waste money buying what you don't need to start. Victoria, thank you so much. She's telling the truth, guys, though. I have, in addition to building not one, but 2 studios here, I have helped build probably 24 other ones. Some physically, every nut and bolt I helped out, either locally or I've traveled to them to do it. And I've also helped out tons of people remotely, like I showed earlier with Keyshawn. I helped him, a guy that didn't know his video stuff and didn't know about cameras and lighting, all this sort of stuff, set up a whole podcast studio in his basement at his house. And again, now he's doing 6 figures plus and is quitting his job as a CPA to do this sort of stuff. So knowing what works, what doesn't work, what will work best for a certain space is super important. And again, it's like everyone that's in the group has done this sort of stuff. We've all experienced high ceilings, low ceilings. Do I put the lights this way? Do I get this camera? Do I use Sony's or Canon's? The answer is Sony's. There's a lot of just things on that. Again, I'd like to think that even just getting the correct gear will pay for the subscription cost in itself. So that our issue with tours are when people sit down and don't want to leave. That's fair. That's fair. The key is maybe to never have them sit down, although I just told you to sit them down for a little bit of a thing. Again, we don't do that as of now, and I never really thought about it, but I usually don't sit with people. I kind of like walk them through the studio, and then I kind of keep standing. And maybe it just kind of automatically makes them feel like, not that they're not welcome, but that, all right, did you see everything you want to see? Have I answered all your questions? Then skedat, so we can get people that are actually paying in here. What type of ads do you run to get new clients, and where do you run them at? We run ads on Facebook and IG, like most people. So Meta, Facebook's parent company, runs the ad platform for that. It's pretty easy to use, although for first-time people, it's probably a little overwhelming. But I have spent probably $100,000 on ads over my course. Not all just for the podcast studio, but I've been running ads for 10 years when their platform was even more not put together. But it's really dialed in now. And I think I was kind of trying to hype it up a little bit more, because what it really does is allows you to get in front of the right people. A lot of these businesses are local businesses, right? Like I can't work with somebody that's out in California directly. So I can cater my advertising audience to the Chicagoland area. That's super important. You can go into specific interests, like if somebody's into skateboarding, they might not be into podcasting, but people that are into podcasting, or they're into, Joe Rogan, or they're into Spotify, or they're into, even running and things like that. Like you can cater who's seen your ad so much better than you could have just like a billboard or anything of that nature. And so we run ads consistently. We spend, a handful of dollars a day for this business. We do even more for Creator Space up here. And I think Damien could let us know, but I think we even run ads for the studio business group here too. So ads are really important. Again, it's a whole another topic for another day, but definitely look into it, start learning that skill. I think for most people, I'd recommend that you learn how to do it yourself first. Facebook does a really good job of not letting you be done with it. Again, it's not like you have to do too much work. It's like, here's your ad, who do you want to show it to? And cool, and we'll show you what happened with it type deal. And a lot of people have had great success with like open interest and not even doing that sort of stuff and letting just the algorithm handle that sort of stuff. So I think best bang for your buck is going to be that. A lot of other advertising things like billboards or doing, even print stuff and all that sort of stuff is just a lot of effort. And with Facebook ads and IG ads, you can not only get to the right people, but then you can also retarget people that visited your website or checked you out initially but didn't book. I'm sure you guys have all experienced that, where you shop for a product and then once you, leave that page, you continue to see ads for it. So that's an important thing. But okay. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. I think we still got some people hanging out here, but I'm going to probably, do you use Peerspace, and how much of a percentage of your revenue? Peerspace we do use, and I recommend it in the group. I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. It's another, and it's for a couple of reasons. So for those that aren't familiar with Peerspace, it's like a rental site for predominantly like photo studios. And basically it's usually just the space itself, and you can let yourself in type deal. For when I was doing commercial work, we'd book people's houses or rooms and things like that, or photography studios to do these sorts of things. You pay 20% or you lose 20%, better yet, when people book through there. But it is kind of free traffic. It doesn't cost you to be on it, and while you do have to pay that fee, you can still make money. And they have, people that are on there shopping for things and looking for spaces. And so if they see yours and they wouldn't have normally, I'd rather take money than no money at all. And so you asked about percentage. It's not a big percentage. We have a good chunk of reviews. I mean, I'd say maybe we do one Peerspace thing a month. But it's hard to tell how many people might check out Peerspace and then figure out through our photos and things like that it's called Chicago Podcast Studio, and then book it directly on the site, because it actually costs them more to book it on Peerspace too, because they pay fees and things like that. So, and finally, it's also going to get you a listing on Google. So if you, it's just another kind of SEO friendly thing. So while it doesn't bring us a ton of work, it's free and it's like no harm, no foul in my book. What type of customers do you get? Jazzy, we get all types of different customers, but again, I think we do about 70% of our businesses, 30% is kind of retail level people. And that we get everything from, guys just wanted to talk about sports and shoot the shit, to people wanting to do beauty videos, to people talking about how to build city centers and things like that, actual true stories. So a bunch of random things here, but I'm here till you press stop. I'm getting all the gems I can. Tay, I really appreciate that. But now is about that time. I am going to hit stop. But I'm really stoked with how this turned out. I think, at our peak viewers, we had, a good chunk of people in here. And so while I still obviously am going to reserve even more of this sauce for the community, which once again, today you can get involved with, which I don't think I dropped the link, but let me do it. Is in this. But I do plan to do more streams like this for YouTube for free, just to do them, because it's been fun. It's been fun. I'm glad seeing people tune in, so we'll definitely be doing more of this. I plan to put out more YouTube videos this year. We'll see how that goes between doing the course for the group, doing group content exclusive to the group for the members that paid to have it. takes precedent over doing the YouTube videos. Even with our Riverside sponsorships, it's still not the thing that makes the big bucks. So gotta do these other things. But Tay, I appreciate you for tuning in and hanging out. Appreciate all you guys for watching. Again, you guys could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here with me, so I really appreciate that. But I'm gonna wrap that up, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully, you guys all kill it this year, and your studios blow up, and you can say that hopefully Tom helped out a little bit. So anyway, take care, everybody.